21 Grams is back, and welcome to the third iteration of our show. And in this iteration, we are offering a one-on-one interview with indie artists, and we're going to examine three very specific aspects of the creative soul. The cerebral, which will be all about the chess moves and deep thoughts that go into the aspects of the work and creating the work. The emotional, which will be all about the investment the artist has made in the work and creating it. And the practical, which will all be about the application of common practices, tropes, and ideas. That being said, I'm your host, Joe Compton, and let's get deep into it. Here now is a new episode of 21 Grams. Hello, everybody, and welcome to 21 Grams, our season finale of the third season. And I'm really, really excited to have a new person that I've never talked to before to talk to. Believe me when I tell you, in doing the research for Maria, this is going to be a very, very cool conversation because she's a very, very interesting woman. And we'll get into all of that. But before we do that, Maria, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, my name is very long, as everybody can see. Maria Elena Alonso-Sierra. I was born in Cuba, and once Castro came, we moved to Mexico, where we lived for a year, and then we moved to Florida, and then we moved to Puerto Rico, and then I moved to New York, and my mother followed, and then I came back to Miami, and then I moved to France. And then I came back, and then we moved to North Carolina, and then we're back in Florida. So yeah, I've had a roller coaster of places. Whenever everyone or somebody asks me, "Oh God, I gotta move," I said, "Please don't talk to me about moving. I just don't want to hear about it, because every time I think I'm going to stay in one place, God has other plans. He always throws that curveball at me. Oh, no, you're not going to stay there now. You're going to go somewhere else." I have a master's in English literature. I have studied also as well in FIU under John Dufresne, who's a wonderful writer, creative writing. I took some courses in creative writing, and I'm married. I have two children, one granddaughter now that's coming on the way, which is exciting. And other than that, I'm writing. I've been writing since I was 13 years old. As a matter of fact, the other day, somebody asked me, what are you going to do? What are you going to talk about? Because somebody had asked me to write something about a Christmas story, and I unearthed the 1970 story that I had actually written for my high school newspaper, and I put that on my blog.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so I've been doing that for a while. It's just that life takes over, and
you are also the author of 4 books that everybody can see right above your head there.
Yes, 4 books.
And you dabble in the romantic thriller genre area with some detective stuff and some crime stuff as well.
Yes, my first 2 novels were thriller, suspense, romantic suspense, the old definition of romantic suspense.
Mm-hmm.
Then I wrote a short story collection where I actually dabbled in all genres. I have a paranormal, a ghost story there. I have a detective story. And then I have my exile stories that I wrote based on my own exile experiences, which I fictionalized. And then I hit the detective story, which I wrote, the hardcore New York City detective based on my life there in New York City. And now I'm working on a sweet romance, and I'm working on a cozy mystery.
Nice.
And I'm researching my second book for the Nick Larson detective.
Nice. Not only well traveled, but well genre traveled as well.
I always wanted to write I always wanted to write, period. Um, and sometimes there's some stories that pop into your head that have nothing to do with the genre you have started writing as an author.
Sure.
I always wanted to be looked or searched for my words, the quality of my work, rather than because I write in a specific genre. I don't want to be marginalized that way. I want to be, if I want to write, like for example, I have a cozy that I'm writing right now, and it's about a ballerina who finds a dead body in a school. Well, actually, in a gala performance where she's been invited. If you're stuck with one genre and readers know you for only one specific genre, it's very difficult to to go out there and explore other things.
It's fascinating because you just brought up the ballerina aspect of it, which for people who don't know you, you were a ballet dancer for quite a bit in your youth.
Yes.
And it's interesting to me because there's always been this ideology that you write what you know. That's the comfort zone. That's the idea. And a lot of times fiction is fiction. And often we carry that mantra more than we carry the write what you know. But you have really delved into the process of taking your experiences and turning them into fiction quite a bit. And I'm kind of curious, was the right that what, because you have been formally trained, so was the right what you know something that it was ingrained in you and you just followed that, or is it something that you just feel like is an instinct when you're writing? Because you said, I just hit you, but you have some kind of truth involved in those ideas with what you know. And I'm kind of curious how that evolves for you.
Well, it's almost instinctual. When I think of characters, sometimes these ideas pop up that have to do with my own experiences. For example, the first, I had no idea how. Well, I knew how to write it. It's just that I didn't know. I wasn't experienced enough to write a thriller. So I delved into romantic suspense, which is basically what at the moment I was actually reading a lot of. And I was living in France at the time. So what I did is that as I was going, I went on a hiking trip with my two children, and we stopped in the middle of a clearing, and they had their soccer ball with them, and they started playing, and I sat on the ground. And when I said, okay, enough, let's get back home, I got up, and then I found coins on the ground. And of course, I had been struggling whether or not I should, go ahead and take the jump and actually say, okay, now I'm going to really write a novel, which is what has always been my dream. I'm going to write a novel. So the idea, when I saw those coins, and I said, ooh, these wonderful what ifs that we think of, right?
Yeah.
It says, what if a woman like me, finds a coin, but that coin in particular has a secret attached to it, and it's a deadly secret. So her life all of a sudden comes into danger. And then I started putting little elements. The things that I knew would be, I made her Cuban American, first of all. Right, what do you know? I put the coin in her mother's bracelet, which is typical of at least my family. The women always have bracelets on, and they love all their, my sister calls it bling. They love their bling. And I said, okay, I put it on my bracelet. Then as part of the dialogue, I could go back and search one or two things that could push the plot forward,
Right.
as well as an interchange with the other main character, Richard Harrison. As far as anything else, I had to research some of it because I had no idea. If you can believe it or not, my uncle and my grandfather were kart racers. And they were into racing cars, and we've always been, doing things in cars. And it's been, so basically I had to take one day my car in France with all the twists and curves and all that stuff, and say, okay, how am I going to present this scene? And then, okay, here we go, and then write it. So that's basically, my own experiences. The setting became part of the plot because it's great, with narrow streets and that car trying to, get away from the guy that was trying to kill them. So it put a lot of the elements of what I knew and what I had seen and what I experienced in France, and I put it there in the rest is just creativity. The second one, which is the duology, what I call the duology, which is the second part of the story arc of these two characters. Part of it is in London and part of it is in California. And for this one, I had to do, again, some research about London, Scotland Yard, how they call each other. Detectives in the United States are called differently, in England. So, the little details. Other than that, it was just my imagination. My short story collection, however, is different in the sense that particular section that I had called Soul Songs, that are based on my Cuban exile experience. I actually took my experiences that I went through in childhood and I fictionalized them. So a lot of what happened to me, to my mother, to my family, even family members are there. Detective? I had to do a lot of research for that. But then again, I was planning on, I wanted to write a detective story. I had this image of New York City, Nick Larson, and he's
what era?
Huh?
What era was it written in?
No, it's modern. It's
Okay.
modern.
Right.
It's set in New York City of today, and I just wanted to write a detective story, so I started prepping for it. I went to a workshop in Michigan. Was it Michigan or Wisconsin? I forget. Where it's the police academy that actually does the training. So I took some classes there, and then I have the great fortune of having an ex-brother-in-law who's LAPD. So whenever I had a question, I went to him and I said, listen, what happens if you do this? And he would say, yeah, you have to do this. Or if not, he would say, nah. No. That's what you see on TV. That doesn't happen. So yeah, I did. So it's difficult. It's not so much difficult. It's just that I would say it's instinctual. You
Yeah.
can't help but put things from your own experiences and from your life into what you're writing.
Does it all come together for you through the characters? Do you feel like the characters are the catalyst to gluing the story together for you?
It's a symbiotic relationship. I already know when I think of the story, I already know what the story is going to be,
Right.
at least from beginning, middle, and end. This
Okay.
is where I want to take it. Um, then I start creating the characters. And the characters come actually easy with what you already know what the plot is going to be. But there are moments, especially towards the middle of the novel, and sometimes even towards the end of the novel, that once you have developed the character, you can't take him out of his, you can't change him
Mhm.
or her in such a way that it just doesn't make sense for that character. So many times I've had to scrap scenes, I've had to scrap chapters,
Mm.
and I've had to rearrange a few things because the character starts screaming at you and says, "That's not the way I would behave." So then you change.
You've mentioned in interviews and on your website that Gabriela Martinez, your main character in The Coin, right? She's the main character.
Hmm.
Is an amalgamation of you in some respects. At some, there's a lot of you in there. And
Hmm.
the interesting thing about The Coin is, for people who don't know, your first arc reader was your mother.
Yes.
Did she catch you a lot in this, and was she very critical of how you portrayed yourself in Gabriella when she was reading it?
You know, she didn't criticize. As a matter of fact, she actually enjoyed it because she said, it's realistic. The portrayal of the Cuban woman who's left Cuba and has had all this education and experiences elsewhere, that she had a lot of fun with that. Um, and I didn't put that much in it, but there were moments where you just can't help it. Like, for example, she's making coffee and it's Cuban coffee, and she's making this, and or she says an expression and it has to be an expression in Cuban. There's a scene there where Richard Harrison is has just found out the significance of the coin and the problem with the coin, and he says, "Okay, I need to make sure that we go see where this mountain," and they're having lunch in a restaurant in the middle of Nice, and he's asking her questions, and then she's asking him questions, and then it comes up that about the coin and why is it on her bracelet. So she explains, this was my basically my coming out of womanhood, because it was during a debutante ball, and my mother, thank God she wasn't one of these where, like my friend Anita, who came up from a clamshell. That's typical of the quinceañera kind of
Yeah.
thing. And these are the experiences that gives flavor to the character and makes it much more real than just coming up with your own invention of what a Cuban, would do
Mhm.
or
Were
would
you,
experience.
were you nervous to have her look at this the first time, or?
Oh yeah, I'm always nervous. I'm always nervous. Even my sister, and she's an author herself, but my sister, she writes something different. She's the one that I had an original ending for the novel for the coin, and I had started already on the sequel, the duology, and she had never read it, so she finally read it. It was still not published, and she said, I don't like this ending. And I said, and why not? And she said, there's something about it. It's not strong enough. Then I started thinking, and what happened was that I took my first chapter, which was the prologue in the Book of Hours, and I said, this is more. This is more like it's stronger. It also gives you the sensation that he's not finished with Gabriela. He wants to be in her life again,
Mhm.
and it gives you a little hint of the problem she may have in the second book, which is another psychopath, but it's a different kind of psychopath. This time you know who he is. He's just that you don't know what he's going to come up with in order to coerce her to sell the Book of Hours. So yeah. And again, the Book of Hours, manuscript, medieval manuscript. I'm a medievalist. So yeah, I like that. So I put that in as well.
What I mean, you mentioned that you're an avid reader and you read a lot of romantic suspense that kind of got you on the path to creating that. But what is it about, specifically about romantic suspense, about thrillers, that you think you gravitate towards?
It depends on the novel.
Mm-hmm.
But my very first delving into, and this is going to date me, my first delving into romantic suspense, like I said, I always say romantic suspense, the original romantic suspense,
Sure.
was Madam, Will You Talk?
Oh, yeah.
By Mary Stuart. And I like the fact that it had action.
Mm-hmm.
It had a mystery involved in it. The novel itself, the pacing was strong and faster than usual.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that element of, of that finding two people finding each other and first clashing, but that they're going to help each other and eventually they're going to find, they're going to fall in love with each other. So I like that fact about the thriller. The thriller is that just it's fast paced. It has that mystery element to it. It has that action, and it goes fast. Then again, detective the same way. Is that mystery? How is he going to solve it? I'm more into the Sherlock Holmes kind of detective, where no, not really, because he Sherlock Holmes usually talks about the case, but then he solves it by giving you all the details that you have missed. I like what I wanted to do is for the reader to go on the trip with the detective. Mm-hmm. And not go beyond the detective, which also it didn't create a problem, but it was difficult because you have to write in third person limited. Mm-hmm. And because you can't go beyond what the detective sees and what the detective is discovering. So that made for a challenge, because I usually like to write in third person. I'm not the one that likes to write in first person. I don't know why. That's instinctual too. I like to write in third person rather than first person. I don't know why.
I might have an inkling as to why, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Yeah, I'm curious too. You don't want to be pigeonholed in genre, so you're multi-genre. How about multi-languaged? Are you somebody who may invest some time in doing something other than in English at some point? Do you feel like you might try to do, because you speak other languages, so do you feel like you might try something in a different language?
I may, but it has never crossed my mind, actually, because I've lived here for so long.
Sure.
that basically I think writing for me is in English.
Hmm.
I can bring in other languages. The only other one that I would feel comfortable doing, and even then, it's a little because I'm a little. I'm not. I haven't read in Spanish in a long time, so I would feel uncomfortable writing in Spanish
Hmm.
because I'm a little rusty on it.
Hmm.
But Spanish would be it. Even though I do have my novels are translated into French.
Sure.
I thought I'd give it the honor since I wrote one. I wrote the first one in France, so might as well. I have to think about now doing it in Spanish.
And so I say I have an inkling as to why you write in third person, because you are well traveled, and something that is very instinctual for an artist is noticing things that other people don't notice, like,
Hmm.
and exploring, doing a lot of people watching, doing a lot of sightseeing, and that aspect of it. And in that encompasses almost a third person kind of viewpoint, because you're looking so much at other things and describing other things, and it just becomes a natural pattern to speak like that and to, how to describe it. And I'm curious, as an avid traveler, for you, what would you say to somebody who hasn't had as much experience traveling but wants to write about a different place, you know a different setting, and maybe wants to experience that? What would you say to them? What would your advice be to them, for them to notice? What would you say they need to pay attention to the most when they're either doing the research or actually physically going to these places?
The most important thing, I think, is the feel of the place. Because when you go anywhere in the world, there's a feel to the city, and that has to do with the people who live and reside in it,
Mm.
the people who have businesses there. Um, it's quite different walking, for example, in London and walking in Paris. There's a different feel to it. There's the I mean everything, the food, apart from the food, but it's a different feel. So what they if they have the luxury to go to the place, try to look at and feel the place, look at the businesses around you, what the people are doing. Do they walk a lot? Do they sit and enjoy life in cafes? For example, when I went to Italy several times, we've gone to Italy. I mean, many times. Um, the thing is, in Florence is different from Rome.
Sure.
Rome is a busy, dirty, dusty city that it's always crowded. Florence, on the other hand, it's crowded, but you
Mm.
know, people there are walking. They enjoy the outdoors. At 6 o'clock, it's almost like everybody stops, goes home, takes a shower, gets dressed, perfumed, and they go out into the town. And it's everywhere. There's an energy to Florence at night that it's different from the energy from Rome,
Mm.
because Rome is just constant, just like New York. New York is constant.
Mhm.
So I would suggest that. I would suggest also Google Earth now is a wonderful tool. Okay. It is really a wonderful tool. We didn't have that before.
Yeah.
And I suggest very strongly to make sure that you go to Google Earth if you're like, for example, if you're you're setting your story in New York City. Like, I had the privilege of living in New York City and in the outskirts.
Hmm.
So I know the city, I know the suburbs, I know how it works. But I even had to go to Google Maps and find out, because even the directionality of the traffic has changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't put my down a certain street when that street was going uptown.
Yeah.
So it's though and it's those little details that make the story believable. So
Sure.
I would suggest get a feel for it. If you're writing about a specific area downtown or anywhere, try to get pictures from it.
Mm-hmm.
Try to see what it looks like, what the buildings look like. Are they older? Are they southern looking? Are they brick and steel?
Mm-hmm.
What is the feel? What kind of businesses do they have underneath? Do they have terraces? Do they have this? Do they have that? So but don't drown your reader with details.
Yeah.
Give impressions.
Yeah.
Unless you really need to put your detective, he needed to go and walk down the street and there's the guy who murdered his victim. That is a different story. If it's part of your plot and it pushes the plot forward, then yes. But if not, don't. Give impressions. Give impressions.
Is setting where you feel like it's the most important to be authentic, or is there something else that you feel everything just needs to be authentic?
It needs to be authentic in the sense that if, like, for example, in The Coin, I had to be authentic with the area because people knew the area.
Right.
I can't just say, oh, it took me 5 minutes on the auto route and then I was there.
Yeah.
You can't do that. But at the same time, if you're writing about, for example, a small town, and it's not a specific old town, then you can go ahead and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can create your own little setting. But if it's in a city that is familiar to people, you can't just automatically go ahead and say, okay, no, you can't. I couldn't describe Nice any other way. And still, I just gave little impressions, like, for example, he went into the Quai, he went here, he went to Antibes because he had an interest in antiques. So, but it's impressions when they are going down the auto route going towards her house.
Mm-hmm.
I had to explain, it's the outer route, then it has like a roundabout, then it keeps on going down the street. And then I actually took places that I used to go to and turned here and did there, and so that I could create the tension in the plot when the guy starts following them, trying to ram them out off the road. So yeah.
So there is elements of embellishment, but it's really to further the plot, then not to distract from the idea of where they are.
That's right.
Yeah. I wonder how you view relationships as far as it goes to, because you have romantic elements in your stories, and so are you someone that, and they're modern, so we're a little bit more open these days about relationships and certain elements of the relationship, and I'm kind of curious. You are working on a sweet romance, so that kind of, and cozy as well, both of those you have to tailor there is rules to tailor to make what they are.
Yes.
But for like the thriller and the romantic suspense, were you pretty open to allow it to go as far as it was going to go, or did you have lines that you drew?
I personally don't like to write sex scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're totally unnecessary to me.
Mm-hmm.
Personal. I think they're totally unnecessary. I am of the What is it that the cinema used to call it? Fade to black kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
There is sexual tension, obviously.
Right.
There is the moment, or maybe not, but after that, it fades to black and then it continues. I'm more interested in the relationship itself rather than describe, a sex scene. I'm more interested in the characters and the ramifications of their actions rather than just writing something like that.
It also seems to me that you enjoy happenstance. Is that like people meeting just randomly and things happening randomly? Is that kind of how you base a lot of your thriller elements and your suspense elements on the happenstance of what you're writing?
Yeah, because that's what life's about. Life throws you curveballs all the time. Okay. And there have been moments when, something hits and bam, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Especially, I have, it was funny that my coworkers, when I was a teacher, my coworkers read my novel, The Coin. And, one of my friends told me, he says, Maria Elena, I never realized you had such a warped mind. And I say, well, thank you very much. I mean, come on. I mean, it's supposed to be fiction. It's not something that, but where do you come up with these ideas? And I said, I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. They just pop up.
My ex-father-in-law, he mentioned when he read my book, mine's a crime thriller, and he read my book and he said, I'm not sure. I thought I knew you, but I'm not sure anymore.
I know. It gives them a completely different idea of who you could be. And my husband always starts laughing and starts talking to people and says, my wife can make the perfect crime. And I said, no, there's no such thing as totally perfect crime, but I can come up with ideas. So yeah, but it's fun. What can I say? It's fun. It's fun putting them through danger, but I what I want to write is about normal people getting into abnormal situations. And that relationship, how is that going to take them apart from the mystery or apart from the thriller? Where is that going to take them?
I like that. That's cool. Are you somebody who embraces tropes? Do you like tropes, or are you kind of somebody who tries to steer away from them? Because thrillers are laced with tropes. I mean, there's just so many you can incorporate.
I try to stay away from it. It's not that I try to stay away from them, it's that I just don't think about them.
So if it happens, it happens. Basically.
Yeah, it does happen. I mean, it's I've written to tropes. As a matter of fact, I just wrote a short story because I was taking an online course with a detective, and he gave us writing prompts. And one of the writing prompts was the trope of the locked door with the body inside, and obviously the room was locked from the inside. So I asked him, says, how much do you want? And he said, go for it. And I wrote a short story about it. And it was done to the trope. It was a little different in the sense that I made it almost like an epistolary short story, but it was fun. It was fun to write. But when I'm writing per se, I'm not thinking about tropes. I'm thinking about the story, the plot, the setting, the characters, and especially the dialogue. Because the dialogue has to be also authentic and real. You can't just keep on coming up with. I know they always say, "Yeah, don't write cliches," but it's not so much cliches as unnecessary dialogue.
Yeah.
That we don't talk that
The
way.
plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes you say a lot with saying less.
Sure. A look can do it. You know, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As far as dialogue goes, do you read it out loud? Is that how you authenticate it for yourself, or how do you
No.
keep it? Do you just make sure that there's no extraneous words? Is that basically how it is? You kind of tailor and feather it a little bit.
I never say the dialogue out loud because it's always out loud here. It's inside my brain. And
You just can't let it escape, right?
no, but this is where the way I write, my writing craft, as I would say, comes in. I usually write a scene, and I write it and I write it, and then the next day I go over it. And many times I see, oh crap, this sounds awful. I have to change it. So I change it. Yeah. Sometimes I think this is totally unnecessary and I chuck it. And sometimes I say, wow, that sounded good. That sounded good. Now let's hope that everybody else thinks that it sounded good. And then go ahead.
No, please continue.
No, and then you have to start thinking also, is this the way that a man would react, or this is the way that a man would speak? And you have to
You'd probably be right on that. We're pretty simple to figure out.
No, it's not that. It's just that we speak differently, we think differently, and you just can't. There were moments in the coin where Richard just looks at Gabriela and her husband Roberto, and they say, "What a bunch of idiots these two people are," because they don't realize, that they're really, really in danger, and that was part of the problem because of the fact that they had never been in danger like that, and he had a different set of experiences. So he was looking at them and saying, "What a bunch of idiots," So you have to think about that. You have to put yourself in the other's shoe, so to speak. But dialogue can be difficult. Dialogue can be difficult, especially if you don't want to sound just trite.
Was it a very unique and interesting exercise in futility to kind of get in a detective's head, like Nick Larson was when you're doing a full book with a man's point of view, obviously you said you write in third person, but still you're really coming from the man's point of view because he's the one solving the crime. Was that an interesting exercise for you as well, doing a full book like that?
It was. I had to make sure that I kept to his character, to the actual male, but it was more like he was trying. He's just trying to solve. Whenever he's thrown a case like this, it's all about trying to solve the case, and then it's the interchange between his partner and then the team, and the way he reacts, and it was interesting, but at the same time it was a lot of fun because I've seen my sons and my husband, well, my husband not so much, but more my sons and my nephew, the way they talk to each other. And then I listening to my ex brother-in-law and the way he spoke. So it was a kind of fun, being liberated to be able to say these things and be totally un-PC, and coming up with a black humor that they do come up with. And it was fun. It was fun, but I had to make sure that I always had to be in character with him. to make sure that I didn't deviate, because he has a love interest as well. And then the way he reacts to her is different from the way that he reacts to his team, because they have shared experiences because of crime and police work. So they do have shared experiences, and they, the way they banter one with the other is different. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
we can banter. There's no doubt about that. When you get two like-minded guys together, we can really go. Speaking of which, one of my kindred spirits here, Mr. J.D. Estrada, he says, "Well, we know people who are idiots in all sorts of situations." And he has kind of a question for you. I'm going to try and
Sure.
translate this question because it's a little off, but uh,
Hmm.
he wants to know, basically, do you base your and you kind of answered this already, do you base the male characters off of people you know more often than you would just trying to get into that perspective?
Uh, it depends on the character. For example, my character of Roberto in The Coin is based on somebody I knew,
Yeah.
um, because he was Cuban American as well. His experiences were different, so I had to bring in what I knew about that
Mm,
character. With Nick Larson, on the other hand, I haven't really based it on anyone in particular that I know, except that he's more of an amalgam of all the series and everything that I've seen, um, on TV, on movies, on what I've read.
uh,
So it's an amalgam of all these men who react a certain way, or who look at life in a different manner,
I'm
and
just
that's what I try to do.
I'm just thinking if you had a little Clouseau in there, how weird that would be. But Jay says half Cuban, half Puerto Rican here. Yes.
Okay, bendiciones también. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's my friend I was telling you about earlier from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it is interesting because I wrote my second book. I wrote in a female perspective, so it's very
Mhm.
interesting to get into that skin. And did you have fun with it? Did you feel like it was a lot of fun? And something you would do again, or did you feel like it was so much laboring and so intense that you're just like, you know what, I'm going to stick with what I know?
No, it was a lot of fun writing it. It really was. I'm gonna start writing the second one, but I'm doing research on it. But it's I liked it. I liked it. I liked the way that he would react to his love interest. I liked the way that he reacted to his team. The same thing with Richard in The Coin and in the Book of Hours. The way he reacted to her was completely different to the way he reacted, for example, to his peers, or to his you know to his friends. It would be completely different, and especially to anybody who would threaten, or he felt that threatened her in any way, then he would react completely different. So it was also a lot of fun, because you bring in that protectiveness that it's also inherent in males when somebody is in danger. And
Yeah.
that's what I did. And I'm telling you, it's a lot of fun. Sometimes it takes long. I'm not a fast writer. I cannot be writing. I don't understand how people can write 12 books in a year.
Yeah,
I
I'm with
just
you.
can't.
I'm with you there.
uh,
I always make the joke that I write like the Olympics. Every 4 years, you'll get a new book from me. That's basically
oh, I love that. Can I quote you?
yeah, of course. Yeah, please
Can
steal
I
it.
quote you?
Yeah,
Yes.
please feel free to steal it. No problem.
But no, but it's true. I can't in between the research and everything else. But even then, I'm the type, like I was explaining before, that I write a scene and then I go back
Mm,
and then I check it. And a lot of people don't do that. Everybody has their own writing style.
yeah,
Um, It's just that I can't get a book done in less than a year, and it's a personal. I guess it's a personal thing.
Yeah,
The Masked Singer.
as many seasons as I can get in a year. Yeah.
Oh no, I can't. And then, of course, then life happens.
Yeah.
Like many times it has happened in
Yeah.
my life,
Of course.
that all of a sudden I have to stop, and I can't write for 3 or 4 months because something else has, like, for example, I have so many examples. Which one should I take? The latest one, for example, in 2021, we decided finally to move.
Mm.
I had just finished Nick Larson and just published it. And I had started researching, and I wanted to start writing the ballerina one. And I had to stop because we had to sell the house over there, look for a house over here, then move. So to make a long story short, I didn't write for 6 months.
Yeah.
Because there were other priorities in my life.
Yeah.
So I can't, and that's one of the good things about being an indie.
Yeah.
I tried traditional first, and I was lucky enough that I got represented 3 times by agencies. And then life took over again. I had to stop. And the industry changed so much that somebody mentioned to me, why don't you go independent? And I said, what the heck is independent? And he says, oh, you don't know it? Well, you can actually publish your book and create space and all that stuff. I said, that sounds interesting. So no deadlines, no rush. Yay, Karina. Yeah, that's right. No deadlines, no rush. And it also, I like going slow because I can actually take my time with the characters. I can really develop well the story.
Yeah.
While when you're rushed, you I don't know, then you become cookie cutter. I think, but that's again personal.
I wanted to finish our conversation tonight talking about the audiobook experience for you. You just completed an audiobook, and I'm kind of curious how that went for you. What was it like? Was it a different process? Was it interesting to you? And what did you like about it? And what did you have to struggle with?
The coin was narrated. It took almost a year to narrate, but it wasn't because of any technical issues or any issues with ACX or anything like that. It's unfortunately my narrator had a moment in life as well where he was going through a lot of personal issues and ups and downs with his family, especially I think it was his father? Yeah, it was his father. Illness. So it took almost a year for the entire novel to be actually done. Then my next one, actually, I put up the second novel, The Book of Hours, up for audition, and I didn't get a single hit at all until last year. Then with Nick Larson, I was very fortunate because I put it up for audition and I got several hits, but one of them in particular was from a retired actor. And not only a retired actor, but he usually did not do shared royalties. But he said that he liked the writing so much that he would. And I was lucky because he has that 1950s dragnet voice.
Nice.
Perfect for the detective genre.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he also, I have like a little book trailer up, and he actually composed the music for it.
Oh, neat.
So he does, now that he's retired, he creates music for film and for trailers and for anything you want for his own pleasure. He was a fun character to deal with. Sometimes, it says, you can't, no, you can't say that. Not that you can't say that, but you can't pronounce it that way. Said, oh, okay, let's go on. And he finished it very quickly, incredibly quickly. And yeah, he was perfect, actually. A man of many talents, yes. And it was great. It was great. And listening, and what I do look for, and this is important for you, for whoever's thinking about doing an audio, it's not only the narrator. If he, when he's auditioning for different, you have to give him different examples of different things so that he can actually act it out.
Yeah.
But his or her voice has to be melodic enough, soft enough, or just pleasant enough that you can listen to that person for more than an hour. Because I had some people that they narrated it beautifully, but it just, there was something about it that I no, it was either too bombastic on one end, or the voice wasn't that great, or so you need to fit the voice not only to your narrative but also to the ear. And then unfortunately, I don't have the money yet for good production, in the sense that you can't. I mean, there are platforms out there that you can actually pay up front.
Yeah.
And then you have the rights to put them everywhere.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm working with ACX, and hopefully later on, I can do my. I'm thinking about putting my short story collection. I have to find somebody to narrate it, but I can't. I don't want them to be narrating with a Cuban accent.
All right.
No, it's true. The stories are about Cuba, but the narration has to be you can't have that. Oye, mijo, mira, ve qué es lo que tú vas a hacer, nene. No. It's a serious novel. It's a serious short story. So you gotta, you gotta make sure you do it right.
I was almost gonna suggest you should do it since it's so personal, but
I did a reading of one of my short stories when I was doing a book signing in North Carolina, and I fell to pieces at the end. I started crying. So I can't. I don't think I may be able to give it the right emotional tone,
depth, yeah.
but it's difficult. It's heartrending sometimes.
I can understand that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, especially since you lived it and it's such a part of you. It's hard when you're reliving it sometimes, because we do compartmentalize and we do try to move forward, and it's something about human beings that we're good and capable of doing. But then when you get to that point where you're rehashing it or reliving it, and everything back up, and it's just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's difficult. The others, no, because some of them are just flights of fancy, and the other one is that ghost story. But those in particular, yeah, they're difficult. They're difficult.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you for this hour. It went by so fast, and you're so fascinating and so amazing. And I really do appreciate. It's this great way to close out my season for this show, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to have this, to talk to you, and thank you to Karina for hooking us up and putting this together. tell everybody where they can find these wonderful books that we've been talking about, and how they can find you as well.
Well, I'm everywhere. I'm in Amazon. I'm in Kobo, Barnes and Nobles online, Smashwords, Draft to Digital. I'm everywhere. Everybody has to be everywhere nowadays,
Right.
including Amazon. And then my website is marielenaWrites.com. And you can find the synopsis of the books there. You can find all the reviews for each particular book. I have some other writing that sometimes I put up. Like, for example, I had a story of 2 sentences, and I have other examples of stories up there. And I'm everywhere in social media. Just look at my long name. Just remember how to spell it.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's a long one, I know.
It's easy to spell. It's just there's a lot of letters there.
I know it's a lot of letters. It's almost like a password. You can use my name as a password.
I didn't have
so
a problem
complicated.
spelling it. I just had a problem making sure that I had all the pseudonyms in there.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. But yeah, no. Thank you, Maria, for joining us. And
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this season and beyond. We've got more stuff coming up ongoing now, so definitely check us out, including Sunday. We're doing our This Year in Indies review show, and so hopefully you all come and join us there live, noon Eastern. And remember, that's always time to go indie now, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Weird, it's not ending. End.